26th. If you guys could rise for a moment of silence and pledge. Okay. So I have two messages for tonight's reflection. Since we are entering the holiday season, please be thoughtful and considerate of others. Try empathy. For some, the holidays are the worst part of their whole year. Some people are missing someone or someones. Some people have no family, no friends, or no safe, warm place to stay. It's stressful and overwhelming at times, and on top of the normal day-to-day life stressors, it can be too much. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, try to give others a smile or some space or love or understanding, a warm meal, a helping hand, or just time spent. Giving is not just about making a donation, it's about making a difference. And speaking of making a difference, my second message is one of thanks. Thanks to those that volunteer and give their time to make a difference in our community. Those that build relationships in town that are for the benefit of others. Those that give their time for their neighbors. Those whose jobs are to make sure our kids are and all come home safe. Those who are watching out for others, and those who go above and beyond for our students, and those that truly want to make our community a better place for all, regardless of circumstances. I appreciate you, and I'm thankful that you are part of our community and for all the ways you make a difference. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, fire evacuation announcement. In the unlikely event of a fire, you can exit out the back doors of the chambers and out to the parking lot, or you can exit out these side doors over here, take a left down the stairs and out to the parking lot. Kathy, can I have the roll call, please?
Mrs. Acree?
Here.
Dr. Kalnin?
Here.
Mrs. Cushman?
Here.
Mr. Janitis?
Here.
Mr. Kober?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBlanc?
Here.
Mrs. Pickett?
Here.
Mr. Ryder?
Here.
Chairwoman Riley?
Here. All right. The most anticipated event of the whole year. Our first board guest is the Kid Mayor.
All right, we're going to welcome to the podium Joel Sinez, our Humanities Director, as well as this year's grade 5 student over at Prudence Crandall, our Enfield Kid Mayor for 2024-25, Cooper McIntosh.
All right, so I'm excited to introduce Cooper. He did an amazing job. Putting together his platform, going through the whole nomination process, and ultimately being chosen by his fellow fifth grade classmates throughout town to be our candidate for Connecticut Kid Governor. Unfortunately, Cooper did not win Connecticut Kid Governor, but as a consolation prize, and I think a better prize, he gets to be Enfield's Kid Mayor for the year. So congratulations, Cooper, officially.
All right, Cooper.
And I think we're going to start with Cooper's video that was shared to all of the fifth graders that explains his platform and what he wants to do as Kid Mayor.
Okay.
Hi, I am Cooper and I am running for 5th grade Kid Governor. My goal is to end smoking and vaping. Young children should be healthy and active, not poisoning their bodies. Smoking and vaping are both unhealthy, but a lot of people believe that vaping is the healthier choice, when it is not. Smoking and vaping can have immediate and long-term effects on a young person. Why do you want me as your Kid Governor? I am a loyal, kind, trustworthy, honest, helpful person. I chose this topic because it is heartbreaking to see someone just smoking or vaping. So I am here to try and solve this problem and make the world a better place.
Know how bad smoking and vaping has been getting lately?
I heard of that. Vapes can be made to look like normal objects, highlighters, and pens.
Most vapes contain as much nicotine as 50 or more cigarettes.
Yeah, vapes and cigarettes contain nicotine, which is addictive and makes it hard to stop.
And 80% of the vaping-related illnesses are occurring in people under the age of 35.
Did you guys know within the first 10 seconds of your first puff of a vape or cigarette that the toxic chemicals can spread to your brain, heart, and other organs?
Hey, do you guys want to hear my 3-step plan to try and end smoking and vaping?
Sure.
1. I would like to host a school fundraiser where students can donate to play, and I will also do raffles. In the future, I would like to donate to the American Lung Association for research. 2. I would like to interview people that have knowledge or experience about this subject. 3. I will use money from the fundraising to make signs and posters to spread awareness about smoking and vaping.
That's a good 3-step plan. I like that.
I'm here with Mr. Pratt, and he's going to answer some questions about smoking and tobacco use. Have you ever smoked or used tobacco products? If so, how long ago?
I've never smoked, but I have used tobacco in college. One of the guys on the baseball team I played on gave it to us for free, so that's how I started. It was a long time ago.
Was there a specific moment that made you decide to stop?
Yeah, when I got married and started to have children, I decided to be a good role model, so I figured I shouldn't do that, so I stopped at that point.
What advice would you have for someone trying to quit smoking or tobacco products?
I would say just never start, because once you start, it's not easy to stop. It's very difficult, so don't start.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. In conclusion, I love to play sports and be active. I think it's a great way for kids to be healthy. But smoking and vaping and tobacco products have so many unhealthy effects on children and can cause long-term problems. Please help me spread awareness and be part of the solution. Thank you for your consideration for Kid Governor. Vote for Cooper.
Awesome.
Cooper, do you have anything you want to add to that? No? You're good?
Does anybody have any questions for Cooper? Go ahead, Mr. Coburn.
All right, Cooper, thanks for coming out. I'll just start off and say congratulations on Kid Mayor, and too bad you didn't get Kid Governor, but there's always next time. The only question I got is, so what got you interested in this topic of getting your peers to stop smoking and stop vaping? Was there an experience, friends, family, or something that you observed, or was there something else that kind of inspired that?
So I saw like videos about like people who like were smoking and vaping and the like effects it had on them, and it looked really bad, so I wanted to stop it, and yeah.
Okay, no, that's awesome. That makes sense. And I know, with something like that, we obviously don't want kids smoking in 5th grade. So I just want to make sure you didn't have any peers that you saw that you were trying to get stopped. But if it's something inspired from elsewhere, that makes perfect sense. So we appreciate it. And again, thank you.
Anybody else? Amanda Pickett?
Of course, I have something to say. Cooper, thank you so much. Also, thank you to the staff that support this program. I will do a shout out later, but I recently attended a field trip with 4th grade where they learned about the 3 branches of government. So I see the progression of the learning and where it gets to in 5th grade. So congratulations for your hard work. Great topic. I think healthy living, the whole fundraiser for getting active, pairing with that safety messaging is really important. So really nice 3-step plan. I am wondering a little bit about who you interviewed there and who is Mr. Pratt, and how did you get that interviewee? That was kind of a brave thing to do on camera.
So Mr. Pratt, he does a lot of stuff in our school. He's like a substitute and like a specials person. And I got the interview. I had a different person in mind, but they couldn't come, so Mr. Pratt stepped in and said he could do it.
I loved that addition to your video. I think that was a really unique thing to add. So nice job engaging your whole school community in your project, and excited to see what your year of being Kid Mayor is like.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to go? Ms. Cushman?
Thank you for coming, and congratulations. I appreciated the conversation that you had with your peers in the video in the library. I feel like you really shared a lot of information that a lot of people probably don't even realize. Most of our community understands the danger of smoking, but you're right about vaping. Do you have any other things planned to help spread the word about the dangers of vaping?
So I wanted to have a fundraiser so that I can raise money to get supplies to make posters and flyers to go around Enfield in the school.
And where would we find out about your fundraiser?
I would. I don't know.
Don't worry, we'll get it on
Get that
parents.
one.
Thank you for being here.
Ms. Acree?
Congratulations, Cooper. Thank you for that nice video about your campaign. I really was impressed about how you're making the students and the community aware of the unhealthy choice of smoking and or vaping. So thank you, and I like your 3-part plan. And thank you for representing Crandall. Thanks.
Mr. Ryder?
Cooper, I just wanted to say congratulations as well, but also my favorite part of the video was, to Ms. Cushman's point, the chat setup that you had. A lot of times we see these videos and it's basically a recorded speech of your stump speech, of a student's stump speech to become kid mayor or kid governor. But the fact that you had interspliced that little like cut scene of you and your peers talking in the library, I thought that was great. So I want to compliment you on that. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Dr. Callan?
That was terrific, Cooper. I think what was really the strongest message to me was when adults tell kids not to smoke, that usually doesn't work too well. But when other kids tell kids not to smoke, I think that's a strong message. When I was a kid, I smoked. And I can tell you it was hard as heck to stop. That was the day before. Well, won't go into that. But I just wish that when I was a kid, a friend of mine would have told me, this is really dumb. This doesn't make any sense at all. I think it would have made a difference. So congratulations on that strategy.
Thank you.
Ms. Lang?
Cooper, thank you so much for coming. I was going to say what Dr. Calnan said about student-led initiatives. It's so important. They're my favorite initiatives when students help other students to understand certain situations, because like Dr. Calnan said, when adults say it, it's one thing, but when a peer says it, it's another thing. I'm going to echo everybody. I also appreciated you and the students sitting down, and I was very impressed with the facts that you guys were talking about, and the facts are very scary. So by you saying you saw a video on what the effects are, and then taking that and want to do something about it is very good. So I appreciate you coming. I think you did wonderful in your presentation. But one of the things I want you to remember is we have a former kid mayor sitting up here. So stay involved in school and stay involved in student government, and maybe you'll be sitting up here one of these days being a student representative. So thank you.
Awesome. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Pickett.
This is a question for the adults. Yes. I think that's such a great idea that you have, and I know that we have, and maybe it's not your area, so maybe it's a take-back message. But I do know we have a health curriculum that does cover some of these types of topics, and I'm wondering maybe if there's an opportunity for our kid mayor to be involved in some of those, maybe messaging or coursework or, that material. So
For sure, yeah.
just a consideration.
And one of my thoughts is to extend the message up to our high school students as well. I think that'll be very impactful. Yeah.
I think having Cooper go extend that message might be extremely helpful.
Anybody else? Okay, so I just wanted to say I thought you did an amazing job, and really you should have ended up going with the high school students who went and talked to the state legislators about vaping, because I think that would have been a major impact. You did an amazing job, Cooper. Keep up the good work. Don't stop. You'll be sitting over here where Olivia is pretty soon, okay? But why don't you come up? We have something for you, okay?
Can I very quickly?
Yes, go for it.
I just want to take the moment to thank the 5th grade teachers especially. They did an amazing job this year. This was really challenging to fit in with the new curriculum and the time constraints. And I just have to say I'm so proud of them that they pushed through it and that we got it done, because it's so important for these kids to go through this. And then lastly, youth vote results. We talked about them last meeting. They're posted in the community section on our website. So take a look there, and they'll also be in your Friday updates.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, here we go, Cooper.
All right.
And if Ken, the real mayor of Enfield, Ken Nelson, could come up too, that'd be great.
Well, Cooper's a real mayor, too.
They're all real mayors. We're good.
Ryder, I would say that normally, but I have Crandall's here, so I mean, the number of pictures that we're going to receive.
All right, so Cooper, for doing such an amazing job and becoming Kid Mayor of Enfield, we wanted to give you this gift to remember it by. And I think Mayor Ken Nelson has something really awesome to tell you.
So I have a whole bunch of things here that the chief of police has given us and all other departments throughout town to give you, to thank you for your hard work. But you're not going to get off that easy, because on our agenda Monday night, we are addressing exactly what you're talking about. And we are going to try to pass a policy that there will no longer be smoking or vaping allowed on any town properties. So one, I'd like to formally invite you to start the meeting Monday night. So if your parents will allow you, you come, you'll start the meeting, do roll call and the Pledge of Allegiance. And then also we'd like to invite you to walk in the parade with us for the Christmas parade, if you're interested. Sound good? So I'll see you Monday night. I need you to bring this presentation because you are going to help us from the top get this passed so your initiative doesn't fail, and you'll see how the whole process works. I see it as a win-win for everybody in the town of Enfield, and I think you did a phenomenal job. Thank you.
I've been getting two.
Oh, no.
I don't need it. I just want to take it.
You should get in there, Dad, too.
We can stand maybe like behind so we don't look like awkward people sitting.
Dad, why don't you get, are you sure?
I'm a taker. Yeah. Cooper, slide to the middle, bud.
Yeah, we look a little silly, like standing, sitting.
I'm not my shot anyway.
It's good, it's good. We're in the TV shot. It's okay if we're not in the shot, it's better than us sitting. Nice job, Cooper.
Okay. All right. So, moving on to Board Guest B, Fiscal Year 2025 State and Federal Grants Update. So, go for it.
So we're going to welcome up to the desk, we have Business Manager Lorena Cisneros and Accounting Supervisor Lori LaRusso, and Michelle Middleton is also here as Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, and they're going to provide the board and the public as we start to prepare to, enter the...
Sorry.
You're welcome. The budget preparation process. They're going to start with a little bit of an overview regarding grants, specifically classifications of grants related to entitlement-based, as well as competitive and/or private grants. And just obviously, the appropriation from the town of Enfield to the Enfield Public Schools is a little over $77 million. But I just think it goes without saying that it costs much more than $77 million to run the Enfield Public Schools. So if it wasn't for, a lot of hard work from a lot of folks in terms of writing of grants and submissions of grants and things of that nature, we'd be in a much more difficult spot than we are in. So with that, I thank these three ladies for coming in this evening. I know Lorena's super excited to present to everybody. Take a deep breath. You're going to do great.
Okay, thank you. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
Yep,
okay.
we're good.
Oh, okay. Hello, my name is Lorena Cisneros, and I'm the business manager for the Enfield Public Schools. And we will present in the overview of the state, federal, and private grants for fiscal year 2025. Let me see. Okay. So the state and federal grants are awarded by the State Department of Education to support specific education goals. These grants are classified as entitlement basis and competitive. They are intended to supplement local funding, not supplant it, therefore enhancing education resources. So supplant. A local education agency may not use grants, programs, funds to carry out activities that will be paid for state or local funding. Entitlement grants are funds are allocated to specific recipients based on predetermined formula. Recipients do not compete for entitlement grants. Competitive grants funds are awarded based on merit of an application rather than predetermined formula. So what you're gonna see now is this is an overview of the stat funding by various grants measured by full-time equivalents, FTEs. So we have certified staffs. These are the staff members with professional teaching or administrative certification. Non-certified staffs. These positions includes roles such as teaching assistant and supporting staff. So out of the 844 total FTEs that we have last week, 91.57 FTEs are getting paid out of the grants. So here we go. We have a Head Start grants. Head Start grants are federal. We have federal grant, which the time frame is March 1st, 2024 to February 28, 2025. The grant amount is $1,109,127. These grants promote school readiness for children for low-income families, supporting comprehensive child development service. Under this grant, we pay salary, benefits, professional development, travel, advertising, supplies, parent activities, and furniture and fixtures. Furnitures and fixtures. The other grant, the Head Start grant, is the Head Start Innovate Enhancement State Grant. The time frame is between July 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2025. The grant amount is $104,917. These funds support extended school day service, including additional salary and summer bus transportation. Under this grant, we cover salary, benefits, professional development, supplies, and parent activities. We have the federal grant, Individual with Disability Education Act, IDEA grant. This is divided in two grants, which is IDEA Part B, Section 111. The time frame is July 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2026. The grant amount is $1,522,140. This grant ensures special education and related service for eligible students in the least restrictive environment. These grants cover students between ages 3 and 22 years. Under this grant, we pay teachers, clerical, paraeducator salary, professional development, parent activities, and instructional supplies. Then we have IDEA Part B, Section 619. The time frame is July 1st, 2022 to June 30, 2026. The grant amount is $52,839, which provide funding for a preschool teaching position and covers students between ages 3 and 5. Under this grant, we paid salary. Then we have Carl Perkins Vocational and Technical Education Grant. The time frame of this grant is July 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2025. This is approval pending. The grant amount is $86,157. This grant supports a structured works-based learning for careers and technical education students. The grant funds new professional development and resources for family and consumer science. business marketing, and vocational technology programs to enhance or expand pathways. Under this grant, we pay advisor stipends, professional development, travel student transportation, supplies and material, and property equipment.
Lorraine, I just want to jump in real quick on that grant because I want to emphasize that it's an entitlement grant. So this is the money that has been allocated to us. And the reason it says approval pending is like many of these entitlement grants, we're required to submit how we plan to utilize this grant. It has to all be pre-approved from the State Department before we can actually start to utilize it. The reason I jump in on Perkins specifically, it's one of the most difficult grants for us. Notice it isn't the largest grant, but it's one of the most difficult because it has to be new. We can't utilize it for anything that's currently existing. It always has to be about what do we want to do next. So I just wanted to point that out and give you a breather.
Then we have Title I grant. The time frame is July 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2026. The grant amount is $1,039,410, which this split between Enfield Public Schools will receive $1,022,928, and private school will receive $16,482. Currently, Title I provides teaching and staffing training, coaching and supporting for literacy and numerical initiatives. Title I aims to offer equitable education opportunities for disadvantaged students and services for homeless children and youth. Under this grant, we pay salary and benefits, parent activities, general supplies and materials, and homeless supplies and transportation. Then Title II grant. The time frame of this grant is July 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2026. The grant amount is $145,152, which it's split, same like Title I, between Enfield Public Schools, $135,055, and private school will receive $10,097. These funds will funds professional learning workshops and curriculum development aligned with Connecticut core standards and other district initiatives. Under this grant, we pay professional development for teachers and administrators. Then we have Title III grant, which is the English Language Acquisition Grant. The time frame from this grant is July 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2026. The grant amount is $20,754, and this grant will support English language services by funding resources for the English for Speaking of Other Languages ESOL department. Under this grant, we pay salary, local travel, supplies, and materials. Then we have Title IV grant, which is the Student Support and Academy Enrichment Grant. The time frame for this grant is July 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2026. The grant amount is $75,573, and Title IV fund will be used to support school climate initiatives and after-school tutoring opportunities in math and English. The grant will also cover professional training for middle school science teachers. Additionally, funding will support in-house field trips for intermediate and high school students. Aims to enhance students' engagement and provide authentic learning experience. Under this grant, we pay salary, which is certified and non-certified, professional training, students' transportation, and supplies.
I'm going to interrupt one more time. Probably not the last time. If there's a set of grants that we need to be cognizant of and to keep our eye on, it's the last four we just mentioned. Those four entitlement grants, all of the title grants, Title I, II, III, and IV, these are the 4 grants that we're hearing rumors of potentially being reduced by the feds. So it's just something we need to continue to watch, try to learn as we go through. But it's nothing I have additional information for, but I just want you to put a little asterisk on those for yourselves. It's going to be something we're going to need to continue to monitor.
So we continue with the entitlement grants, which we have a chef settlement. This is an open choice academy and social support. The time frame of this grant is July 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2025. The grant amount is $124,767. This grant supports a school with the highest number of open choice students. Funds are allocated for academy literacy tutors and professional development for certified staff. Under this grant, we cover tutors, supplies, culturally responsive education opportunity for our secondary students. Then we have the ARPA LEAP grant, which is the American Rescue Plan Act, the Learning, Engagement, and Attendance Program. The time frame of this grant is July 1st, 2023 to January 30, 2026. The grant amount is $150,000. The LEAP will be implemented as a complementary intervention to existing school-based and attendance team. A district-wide committee will meet monthly to discuss attendance patterns, provide staff training, and evaluate programs best practices. Under this grant, we cover hourly wages and local travel. Then we have a state bilingual grant. The time frame of this grant is July 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2025. The grant amount is $2,427. The grant will be used to resources to support Spanish speaker native students at JFK middle schools. We will cover under this grant supplies and material. Then we have the Open Choice Acceptance Rate Chef grant. The time frame of this grant is July 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2025. The grant amount is $6,900, and the funds will be used to purchase recruitment supplies and materials for pre-K STEAM Academy, open house events, and family recruitment activities. Under this grant, we will pay supplies. Then we have Open Choice Educational Enhancement Chef grant. The time frame is July 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2025. The grant amount is $6,900, and this grant will support the student engagement via specialized extracurricular experience and community building events to our primary school that enrolls the highest open choice student population. Under this grant, we will pay parent-student activities. Then we have the Open Choice Grant. Last year, fiscal year 2024, we received $763. Sorry. We estimate to receive this year, fiscal year 2025, $760,000. The Open Choice is an interdistrict public school program intended to improve academic achievement, reduce racial, ethnic, and economic insulation, and provide a choice of education program for public school students. The State of Connecticut Department of Education pays grants to school districts participating in the Open Choice program. Enfield Public Schools receive funding for students who attend from Hartford School District. The per-student grant amount varies based on the region and the enrollment. And then we have the ARPA Paraeducators Professional Development Grant. The time frame is July 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2025. The grant amount is $14,000. The purpose goal of the project is to provide paraeducators professionals professional learning and training in the following areas: self-help skills, social emotional learning, positive behavior support, de-escalation, and a strategy for supporting student learning. Under this grant, we pay professional development.
We'll give you a little break.
There's a lot. This is great.
So the next set of grants are our competitive grants. The first one is the Correct Magnet School Assistance Program, which we refer to as MSAP. That is our pre-K consortium grant. This is a 5-year grant. They give us dollar amounts every term. So for our 24-25, our grant amount is $274,883. Again, this is a 5-year grant award. It is for the purpose of assisting in the desegregation of public schools by supporting the elimination, reduction, and prevention of minority group isolation. EPS participates in a consortium with CREC to fiscally manage this grant. EPS solely provides services to our pre-K STEAM Academy with this funding. We cover salaries, benefits, parent activities, professional development, copying and reproduction, travel, instructional supplies, dues, fees, and subscriptions. The next grant is our state adult, that's okay, state adult education grant. We have 2 sections of this grant. The first one we call State Adult Education Provider, or our BASIC grant. That is a time frame of 1 year, 7/1/24 to 6/30 of 25. That grant amount is $120,513. In accordance with CGS Section 10-69, this grant supports adult education services, including Americanization and U.S. citizenship, English proficiency classes, and basic skills in secondary school completion programs. Funding enhances the delivery and integration of instructional programs. This covers salaries and benefits, professional development, student transportation, other purchase services, instructional and office supplies, and textbooks. We also have the cooperative grant portion. This provides funding based on the population enrollment figures for the cooperating towns of Granby, East Granby, Summers, Suffield, and Windsor Locks. That grant amount is $124,780, which covers salaries. Our Smart Start Operations Grant, it is a 1-year grant, 7/1 of 24 to 6/30 of 25, for $185,000. The Smart Start grant enhances access to high-quality preschool programs at the Stowe Early Learning Center, specifically the PKC Academy. This covers salaries for teachers, teachers' assistants, professional development, and parent activities. We have the Parent Trust Fund is our next grant in the amount of $24,322. This is a 1-year grant, 7/1 of 24 to 6/30 of 25. These funds utilized by Key Initiatives to Early Education, our KITE program, for the Parent Leadership Academy. The grant covers coordination, childcare, advertising, curriculum materials, and food for weekly meetings, supporting supporting KITE's operational and fiscal management of this program. Our Connecticut Stronger Connections grant, timeframe 9/1 of 23 to 9/30 of 26. The grant amount is $176,868 to support after-school academic and/or behavioral support at EHS. Supports take place during the school year as well as summer opportunities. We cover certified, non-certified compensation, student transportation, supplies, and resources. We have our AARP, Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, the ESSER set-aside. That time frame was quick, 7/1 of 24 to 9/30 of 24. The grant amount was $275,000. This grant was used to purchase state-approved reading and math curriculum programs. Next, we have our private grants. Private grants are financial awards from non-government organizations such as foundations, corporations, or philanthropists. These grants support projects in education, healthcare, research, and community development. The eligibility typically directed toward nonprofits, research institutions, or community organizations, though some grants may be available to businesses or individuals. The first one we have is our Ready Connecticut First LEGO League that happens at JFK. The time frame of this grant, 9/30 of '24 to 5/31 of '25, in the amount of $4,436. These funds will be used to pay the coaches' stipends for our 2 First LEGO League teams at JFK. We were also awarded an Enfield Cultural and Arts Commission grant, time frame of 2/28/24 to 2/28 of '25, in the amount of $500. This allows students to collaborate on community art projects to benefit the Enfield community. Students from EHS and our elementary schools will collaborate with current partners to assist in creating large-scale murals showing positive school culture. These funds are used for supplies. The Simconvitz Endowment Talent and Gifted Tag Program, that's a lot. The time frame of 7/1 of '24 to 6/30 of '25, in the amount of $105,000. Enfield Public Schools received a donation from the estate of Abraham Simkovitz for the Gifted and Talented program at JFK Middle School. This will support the TAG program annually for many years, covers salaries and supplies. Our Connecticut Association of Schools Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference Endowment and Flanagan Grant, in the amount of $1,605. This grant provides opportunities for students to participate in school-sponsored activities, specifically in competitive esports. Through both practice and competition, students develop leadership, communication, teamwork, problem-solving, and time management skills. These funds are used for supplies. We had another art grant, Every Child Art Experience, time frame of 2/1 of '24, coming due November 30th of '24, in the amount of $2,500. This grant allowed visual students, art students at Enfield High School to participate in field trips to local art museums. The funds cover museum admission, transportation, and supplies for community art projects. Field trips and supplies and materials are how those funds are used. This presentation has provided an overview of the various state, federal, and private grants that support educational programs and services across Enfield Public Schools. The funding received plays a critical role in supplementing our district's resources, allowing us to enhance student learning through targeted interventions and specialized programs, support staffing needs, invest in professional development, curriculum improvements, and classroom supplies, and address the unique needs of our students, including those in special education, early childhood programs, and adult education. The federal and state-approved grant applications are available via the Connecticut State Department of Education's e-grant management system. To view, here are the steps. We've got the web address and then how to access the grants and the applications themselves.
Awesome. That was awesome. Thank you guys so much. Okay, question time. Who would like to go? All right, Mr. Kober, you're first.
All right, thank you both. I feel like I'm back in a finance and budget initial subcommittee orientation. So I think that was great. I'm glad you guys were able to do this, kind of go through them for, all the grants we have for the current year. And, the dates, the salary, or, what they're being used for and the dollar amounts and stuff like that. I think one of the key themes or one of the takeaways that, I realized coming into this is the whole supplement versus supplant, and then kind of the importance of that and conveying that understanding. So tying back into what our superintendent said is, we may have the budget and, we get the 77,429,555 for this year, but we have a lot more than that because we have all these grants that are coming in. So if you guys could just talk maybe just like a quick overview of like the, once we have the grants, how they actually get dispersed over time, and then, like we get quarterly disbursements on some of them, we have to spend the money and get it. So if you guys could just maybe do a quick public overview of that, to kind of touch base on that.
Okay, am I on? Okay. Yeah. I'll speak for like the title ones that I have and the chef ones that I have involvement with. What happens is yes, the time frame usually starts before we actually submit and get the approval. Once it comes in, Lori lets me know. And then what I do is I go through the narratives and I reach out to, I put like the after school tutoring program we're going to put in place at JFK is dependent upon approval, the final approval for Title IV. Once that's in place, I'm going to reach out to Sarah Brown. We're going to start working on the staffing and and that's really how it goes. I don't know if all the money comes in at one time, but I know that once they're approved, that's when we start actually putting the programs and what we've written in the narratives in place. I'll reach out to somebody for supplies and say, okay, go ahead and purchase what we described in the Title I grant. Go ahead and purchase, put the invoices in for the professional development. Let's start scheduling these things. We don't do any of that piece till we hear from the state that everything is set and that the money, we get the award letter.
Definitely. I think that's important. I think just to, maybe to further elucidate for everyone is, we do get that award letter, but most of these grants are not like a single disbursement. They are, you spend X number of dollars, you submit the invoices, the salaries, and then you get reimbursed for that. And then whatever it is next quarter, next biannually, you spend the money and then you get reimbursed for it. So I think that's kind of the important piece I'm trying to get at. And again, I don't know if you guys could explain it more eloquently than me. Again, just to kind of reiterate that we do at the front end, we're maybe spending some of our money and then we're being reimbursed as we're submitting receipts and invoices and so forth.
Thank you. So yes, that's what happens. We spend the money if we are using this funding for salaries. We pay salaries, and then our MUNIS system, we will do our report, and then we would ask for the reimbursement from the state based on the grant funding available in that category.
I would just also add in that with all of these grants, the funding, when we request it from the state, it gets sent back to the town. And then there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work between Lorena and the town side in terms of shifting it from the town funds over to the Board of Education funds in terms of journal entries and things of that nature. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes that has to happen to make sure that the accounting is appropriate and correct.
No, that's fine. I just kind of wanted to dive in and maybe further, kind of explain that. And I think that's a good tie-in, that it's a complex process from grants, application to approval, to spend the money, to get reimbursed from the money, and then where that reimbursement ends up in order to, replenish our allocation. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Was the clarifying question?
A clarifying question and some others, if that's all right.
Can you ask the clarifying question first? Because that's something lots of people want to go.
Perfect. You had mentioned the procedures for like some of the grants get sent to the town and then come to us. I know with some of the concerns we had with the audit, do we know if when they receive those funds, if it's on their consent agenda and like publicly shared that we've gotten this money and now we're giving this money to the Board of Ed, if that is publicly done? It's okay if we don't, but that might be something to consider as far as a procedure, as far as how the town receives the funds and then publicly shares them with the Board of Ed.
I'm not aware of that.
I don't ever remember doing that.
Currently,
Sitting on the council.
but it's something that Lorena and I will look into further, and I can update you through the weekly
Perfect.
update.
I don't know how it was done in your previous district. I was just kind of looking at some procedures from other districts. And
Previous
some of them do
district,
that.
it wasn't done publicly. It was a lot of, like I said, the behind-the-scenes paperwork between what would be John Wilcox and Lorena's position. I will, the other piece of this, not to get us off track a little bit with it, but to clarify the clarifying question, the information that was given to you in the back here regarding the e-grants management system and things of that nature, the state has become more and more transparent in terms of grants because they want us to spend all the money that we have been allocated. So they have a dashboard now. Just please be aware, the dashboard, way behind. So we ask for reimbursement from the state sends us the money. The dashboard doesn't necessarily reflect that. Because I know I get repetitive emails from the state. Make sure you draw down all your money. Make sure you did. Well, and then I send an email over to Lorena, and she's like, yeah, we did that like a year ago. So just as you look at information on the state website, just know that they are behind.
Mr. Giannitis.
I have 5 things here. One would be, it'd be really helpful for some of us, like the 2 oldest, to have a paper copy of what you just went through. I couldn't write fast enough, so that would be helpful in future dates. Some of these grants, I don't know if I got it right here, the entitlement grants, ones where you get for 1 year, and then what happens the next year? Are we responsible for picking up where we left off with the monies we got, or do you apply for another grant again?
The entitlement grants are that the state says you have this much money to use in this grant, and then you fill out the application. Entitlement, they tell us what grant we have and how much money we have to spend. We don't have to compete for those. The competitive grants, you fill out an application, and they like, for example, the Stronger Connections one, I wrote that grant. They said, you have this much money in Enfield, but you have to fill out an application. It has to meet the guidelines of the rubric, and it has to be approved. So that one, it did. But they actually said, you have whatever the amount of money it is. This is the amount of money you have to spend. Here are the requirements for the guidelines to spend it. Write the grant, tell us how you're going to do it, how you're going to spend every dollar, and submit it, and then we'll get back to you and let you know whether or not you've been awarded the money. So even though they told us the amount, it wasn't a guarantee we were going to get it. Entitlement grants, they say, Title I, this is your amount of money, and you know that here are the requirements for how you're going to spend it. You submit it, it goes through a process where you submit it, well, first Mr. Macchio approves it after we've written it, sends it into the state, and then it goes through, I think there's 4 or 5 different people that can approve it, and they can either approve it or send it back for revisions every single step. And you go through all of that. But you don't have to ask for an amount of money. They tell you what you're getting.
Okay, I think I've missed the boat there in the way I asked the question. Were there some grants in here that we were getting just for 1 year?
Well,
and then the next year, what happens?
We reapply.
You have to reapply.
Well,
You're not mandated
yes,
to keep that program
if it's
going.
available, they let you know if it's available, and you write the application all over again.
So you don't have to keep that program running on our own dollar.
No.
Okay.
No, if you run out of money, you do not have to keep the program running.
Okay.
Which is why a lot of the grants are used to do supportive things. That's why they say it's supplement, not supplant.
The English language as a second language, I noticed just almost $21,000. That covers all schools?
It does, and it's mostly supplies. So like this year, for example, Mr. Flynn, our literacy director, he's in charge of the ESOL program. He worked with his teachers to find out what supplies or resources they needed to work with the particular students they have this year. There might be like something in a language that we didn't have enough of, that we have more students in, and he put into the grant for that. So it does, they look at the entire district.
So we have people who are being paid to teach kids a second language.
They're
not from a grant.
They're being paid to support students who speak a second language in supporting them in learning learning the language. It's more of a inclusion type, like a push-in type model. They work with them in their classrooms to support them in their academics.
Okay, things pop in and out of my head all the time here. Is it true that like when the kids have to take the testing, new kids, immigrants come in here, they don't speak any English, they have 1 year, and then the testing has to count?
Yes, it used to be that they didn't have to test.
Yes.
Now they have to test. Actually, technically it's 2 years. So what happens is they test the year they come in. Their score doesn't count that year. They test the second time, and now they measure the growth of that student from the first to second year. So technically, it doesn't really count against us the first year, but they do have to test.
So in essence, does this have anything to do with like us being on an alliance district because of those scores?
There are.
Half of them probably can't still read the stuff.
Well, there are some supports in the online platform for Smarter Balance, for example, that will give a glossary for other languages. You can have that accommodation, that designated support for ESOL. If they're ESOL students at a certain level, they can get like a Spanish glossary or even a text translation in certain areas of it. Yes, they can. It doesn't do all languages, though, and we have quite a few languages that probably are not eligible.
Which we have this.
We do.
Now,
We do.
Yeah.
We absolutely do. Yes.
The total value of the grants that we will probably get, do we have a figure for that as to how much money we're actually maybe possibly getting?
We have. We don't have here right now, but I could provide it to you. Yeah, we have that. We give it in every finance meeting, we give the total of that. I don't have at that moment right now.
Yeah, Mr. Janice, if I could chime in, I believe from their grant summary, it's just north of about $5 million a year.
Okay. And then the last question, the TAG program. I noticed it was $105,000 net, and that includes salary. Is that the full salary for the teacher teaching it?
No. No, that is included the supplies and material.
But it did say, on your thing, it said salary.
It says salary and supplies, right?
So how much goes towards salary? I mean, you have a teacher, one teacher, he's going to be making he's going to on maximum.
Yeah.
So there's it's a portion. I don't believe they have the number right here with them. What you will receive as part of the budget process will be a breakdown of FTEs by building, and there'll be multiple columns. It will show how much of the FTE. So for example, the TAG program, there's a person. So you're going to be able to look at that one person, and you'll see, and I'm going to make up a number here, so don't hold me to this, but that 0.4 of their salary is paid out of the grant, and 0.6 of their salary is paid out of the Board of Ed appropriation.
and then
So
the
you're
rest
going to
would
see
go
that
to
broken
activities and
down.
stuff like that,
Yeah, you'll
okay.
see that broken down by person as I begin to present the budget for you.
Okay, I just didn't want to see it all being going towards salaries. Okay.
Understood.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Pickett.
First, thank you. I think this presentation's like a little overdue. I think this is incredibly helpful. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to put this together, for giving such a thorough overview. I think it's really helpful. And my hope is that actually our town council counterparts receive a link to this meeting and receive the presentation, because I think understanding this, especially with some of the auditing questions and the upcoming budget season, I think it's very helpful to understand the supplant versus supplement, and like all of the restrictions and the support that it provides, which leads me to my second point, is the reality of federal funding impact. Steve, I want to just second that. I think we have to be thankful to our state legislature and leadership for the safety of some of our state grants and state funding. We point a lot of fingers up here about who's to blame for why we don't have a lot of money, but the reality is that much of this money is on the brink of potentially being stripped away, and I think that we need to reflect on what the money provides and what is our plan for supporting the needs of our students, because the needs aren't going to go away. And so I'm going to ask some questions. I don't expect any answers, but I think it would be helpful if you could share the PowerPoint and maybe some of this information at some point. So my one wonder is, what's our total amount for those title grants, Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV? So we can like think about what is that budget impact and what are we funding it for? Sorry. Same thing with the reality is we get grants for like covering special ed services, for example. I did not see the excess cost sharing grant. Did I just miss that, or was that not part of the presentation? Because that's
different.
Okay. That might be a helpful follow-up 2.0 of this. Is
You're going to have a presentation, so not to cut you off.
Perfect. I think it wasn't.
We have guests staggered throughout the season coming. One of those will be Julie Carroll, who will be presenting related to special education. Obviously, excess cost is a major portion of that.
Yeah, because I know we've been having a lot of discussion about the cost of servicing special education services, and I think it would be helpful to know how much of our costs are covered by these grants, by excess costs, and by taxpayer dollars, and then thinking about how do we invest and utilize that money. Same thing for some of the other grants. My guess is the Title I costs for homelessness students. My guess is we also contribute a ton to that. So I think it'd be helpful to know how much are we using the grant money and how much are we also contributing to those supports, because I think that demonstrates the impact of the funding and the need, but also that we are supplementing, sorry, I wanted to make sure I use the right S word there, and how we support that. With those comments, I do want to just clarify a couple of things that Peter had mentioned. One is the testing and students who might not speak English are multilingual learners. The reality is our low performance as a district is not because of our multilingual students or our special ed students. The reality is all of our students are struggling. So I don't think there's one finger to point at a group of students. I think the other wonder for me, and maybe this is a follow-up question, is many of these entitlement grants, although we apply for them year after year, the reality is many of them we've been getting historically for a very long time. So it might be helpful to know like that story too, because I think there is some reliance on getting the funds. And so thinking about kind of that longevity of the funding. Sorry, so many questions. And then the competitive grants, my wonder is how we're planning for sustainability. If we don't, receive the grant, what are we deciding to do after the fact? But those are my last questions, considerations, thoughts for next time. Thank you again so much.
Okay. Dr. Calnan?
I think Amanda pretty much already asked this question, but I guess the thing that I'm most worried about is those Title I through IV funding. And I'm extremely naive as far as matters of this sort are concerned, but how are we even able to plan or budget in advance when we just don't know the fate of those entitlement programs? Or is that a dumb question to be asking?
Not a dumb question at all, Dr. Callan. It's one of the items that we have to do as we go in and we build the budget is, first of all, obviously, we have to set priorities, right, as part of the budget. But to answer that question specific, we have to make some assumptions. And you call them hypotheses, call them guesses. In my budget presentation, we call them assumptions. We have to assume certain things. Because I don't have the magic, I do have a magic 8-ball, but it doesn't necessarily work when it comes to grant funding in terms of how much we're going to be receiving. But we have to plug in a number there in terms of what we assume that we're going to be receiving. Excess cost is a perfect example of that. There's a number of assumptions that you're going to see as we go through the budget presentation.
Ms. Blank?
I just want to say thank you to the three of you for coming and explaining the grants tonight. Put a feather in your cap because you showed how well informed you are, how strong you are in grant processes, and how professional and educationally sound you are to be doing this job. I know the business department has been under fire by the town council. Many of us knew this information going into it already. So if somebody chooses to start talking about lottery tickets and mismanagement of funds going forward, that's just plain ignorant and politicizing education on behalf of the town of Enfield. So just know that you did everything you could tonight in your presentation. That was really in-depth and helpful. I hope Board of Ed members realize that they have gone in front of TV cameras and sat down for interviews, and they spread incorrect information. And I hope this sets the record straight for everybody. And again, if people choose not to believe what was presented tonight, then that just shows their own ignorance. But you guys are professional, and people forget that there are actually real people doing these jobs behind the scenes that are actually educated and well prepared to do it. So thank you again. Put a feather in your cap. I appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you.
Anybody else? One question, because all the other questions already got answered. When do we get told by the state for the entitlement grants? Like, at what point in the time of the year do we get told, hey, you can be expecting this amount, now apply for it?
Depends on the grant.
It depends on the grant?
It depends on the grant. I feel like we start getting the exact number for Title I and Title II around September, right?
Yeah.
And it's usually due October. Title IV comes around that time, but maybe a couple weeks later.
And that's for
those
the following year or the current year?
It technically those grants are 2-year grants, so they
for the
start
next-
7/1 and then they end. So like this year is supposed 7/1/24 and then 6/30/26.
Right. So they'll tell you in September for 7/1/26 6?
The exact amount, for
The current one.
the current.
Okay.
So it's 2 years, so we can start spending right away.
So it's a grant that starts in July, but they won't even tell you until September how much, and that's,
Nail on the head.
hey, that's
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
exactly how the budget
I
system works.
feel
That's great.
awkward explaining it that
Yeah,
way, but
no,
it
that's-
is how it happens.
Okay.
But we know we're getting money. The exact amount isn't just that's what's up in the air.
Yeah,
And
so-
also, again, you saw in those grants, part of it goes to private schools.
Right.
That depends on the numbers of their kiddos. So once we get the entitlement, Lori has to do the math to figure out how much each of those buildings get, and then we get the amount that we have to spend on ours. So,
Right. So then basically, if something were to happen to one of those grants, we wouldn't even know about it until we were already
we would
a couple months into the budget.
I'm going to make an assumption.
Yep.
I'm going to assume that we would have an idea that there was going to be
Because
a cut
Okay.
if it was coming. That I think is going to be, that would make news before we got our. I don't think we're ever going to be in a situation where they're like, oh yeah, you're not getting anything.
Yeah.
It's just what would the amount be, and then what do you take out or put in to work with that amount.
One of the many reasons that I sit on the state and federal legislative committee for CAPS is because I get firsthand information.
Yes.
So we hear of it well before sort of it becomes public and makes it into the papers.
I feel like a broken record with the budget is backwards, so.
It is backwards. There's no doubt about it.
Broken, yep.
And just remember that because it's a 2-year grant, we're expending the money from the previous year's grant before we begin to roll into the new grant that we have just been notified about. The other part of title that we didn't really get into, but the title grants are largely dependent on our free and reduced lunch population. So they need those percentages. They need everything clarified as part of those percentages.
That's why,
A whole lot of background information, and then we have to determine, and Michelle is the one who's largely responsible for writing the justification for those grants, is how do we want to spend them? I know I provided you with part of last week's weekly update, the breakdown of the title grants and how we designate them for a certain number of schools versus all the schools for a variety of different reasons.
And one more quick thing. They're 2-year grants, the titles, but I know Title I and Title II work this way. I'm not sure Title IV does. It's not as easy as saying, well, we're going to spend 50% of the money this year and 50% next year. You have to use a certain percentage in year one. You can't, 85%. So you can't carry all of it over to the next year.
Okay. And then, I guess I did one other clarifying statement question. So all the chef open choice, those 4 of them, that we only get that because we have open choice kids, and that's based upon the number that we have.
Yes, the
way.
big one is based upon the number.
Yep.
The Open Choice Academic Student Social Support
Social
Grant,
support, yep.
that one is also based upon the number, but it has to be used in certain ways. So you have to do something academic with it. We have elementary tutors. Some of the tutors are paid through that, and we also paid this year for some supplies at the elementary schools for small group intervention and reading. And then you have to do some sort of professional development and some sort of school climate. So when the secondary was referenced in those they got the school climate and the professional development.
Gotcha.
And culturally responsive has to be in there as well. But that's part of what we did for both professional development and school climate.
Okay. Cool.
And then the other 2, the 6,900 ones, those are flat. It doesn't matter. I think they do figure out how much it goes based on your kids. Yep. And one is used for recruitment, and that's the one that Ms. Valley uses for once students are get accepted in the lottery, they do an open house. And the parents and the students come in and they do activities. They have a book that they send home and some, PK STEAM Academy swag and the little eaglet T-shirts or whatever. And that money is used for that. And then the other one, the educational enhancement, which is also $6,900, that is supporting 3 different nights with the Science Center at Barnard this year, and some musical opportunities with Miss Renee as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Schneider.
So, this past year, when the last budget finished, and everybody was throwing out all kinds of numbers, this is how much we're in the hole, this is what we're, all the stories that were running around. And a lot of it had to do with grants that were going to come in at the very end. Is that something that happens all the time? There's always going to be a certain amount of money that we just don't know until the very end?
I'm gonna let that be a Lorena question because she's the business person. I do the narratives.
So what do you mean? Like we have all the grants at the end, like the amount at the end of the year?
Remember when somebody was saying you're in debt $2 million, $4 million, $6 million, whatever, and then some people were saying, but we still have grant money coming in.
Like reimbursements.
Yeah, at the very end. Is that something they have? I've lost total. Does that happen all the time?
I would ask Phil because Phil's the one that was throwing around the $10 million number.
That one, I think so. That is the reimbursement that we were waiting for. So that is for example, open choice money. We were waiting for that, and the check, the last deposit was receiving on the last week of May. So that's why we don't know yet how much we will have.
That's something that typically happens then?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just chime in. I mean, I think the end of year closeout has a lot of moving parts between the reimbursements for certain grants, certain POs being closed, money that may have been encumbered that's not being expended, and then, revenue from, like you said, open choice and other sources. So I think there's a lot of parts in that, but that ties back into, while it may not be lottery tickets, I think there's a lot of assumptions, and those assumptions are always tied up at the end of the fiscal years.
Which is what I said several times about the 10 million not being the correct number.
So to help clarify this point, moving forward, Lorena and I have done a lot of work in terms of the budget report. So we've added lines within our budget which are revenue, much of which have to do with, for example, we'll just use the excess cost. We have a projection which we believe will be the total throughout the whole year. We submit and we receive reimbursement at certain rates at certain times. So you're going to see on our budget reports sort of moving forward, and I know from the Finance Committee we've begun to show this, like we expect to receive back X dollars of reimbursement. At this point, we have taken in Y dollars, so you can know how much more we still anticipate to come. I think at the end of the year, Peter, to answer your question, a lot of it has to do with the timeliness of when we spent, and then the timeliness of when Lorena submits to the state for reimbursement. Because, again, it's backwards a little bit. We have to spend, then they have to reimburse. So the earlier we can do that at the end of the season, the more information you're going to have. But again, those additional revenue lines, I think, will be very helpful for you to understand just how much more we anticipate to be coming in.
All right. Is everybody good with their questions? Again, thank you for this amazing presentation. It clarified and gave a lot of information that was super helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, big shout out to the ladies here. Yes, absolutely. Amazing. I mean, there's 28 different grants that they just took you through, and they range from $500 to $1.55 million. Correct. And it doesn't matter the amount. The amount of work they have to do for every single one of them is identical. So a big shout out to those ladies. Thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you. Yes, happy Thanksgiving. Okay. Moving on to superintendent's report.
Moving on to student representatives reports.
Okay, hi everyone. First things first, I wanted to give a shout out to anyone that came to our EHS annual volleyball tournament. It was really successful, and they raised a lot of funds for the Megan Davis Memorial Scholarship this year, We also have something tomorrow, which is Career Day on the 27th. It's an 8-period block day, but it will also be a half day. The schedule should be in Students' Outlook if anyone was gonna go tomorrow. We also have our next half day, which is a professional development on Wednesday, the 4th of December. So it'll be a half day for students, but a full day for teachers. We also have December 12th, we have Poetry Out Loud for Enfield, and I know a lot of Spanish or language departments are doing the Poetry Out Loud. So if you're in one of those classes, you might be going there, and you might see some of our students there. We also have midterms coming up on January 23rd, ending the 28th, which I don't think anyone's excited for, but it is coming up soon. I also wanted to talk about our conference that me and Liv went to. We went to the Board of Ed conference, and we got a lot from that, and we're introducing a survey for our students about what they want to see us talk about at the Board of Ed and what concerns they kind of have, so we can be more representative of the student body.
Good evening, everyone. So the Lamplighters had their production of the Great All-American Musical Disaster this weekend, and I wasn't able to make it myself, but I've heard great things about it. Chorus and Orchestra will have their concert on December 5th, and Band and Jazz will have their concert on December 11th. The class of 2025 is still having the Red Robin fundraiser, and that's happening tonight, currently right now at the Red Robin in Enfield. They will also be having a pancake breakfast on December 14th from 9 to 11 in the Enfield High cafeteria, and volunteers are still needed from 7 to 9 a.m. for setup or 11 to 12 for cleanup. So I think you can just show up and they'll have something for you to do. They're also taking donations. Is that right, Izzy? It's like toys, I believe.
Not for the pancake breakfast, but for Toys for Tots.
Okay, but that's at the same time, right?
It is open it's open until December 15th. You can drop it off at Mr. Onifree's room.
Okay. And football had their senior night last Friday, and the fan turnout was great, and that was the Route 5 rivalry game. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, ladies. That was awesome. Thank you very much.
Other information, just a reminder for everybody. I know everybody knows that tomorrow is an early release day for everyone, and students will be sent home with lunch. And then obviously Thursday for Thanksgiving, and Friday all offices will be closed for the public schools. And also a reminder, as we return back, December 4th, we also have an early release day for pre-K through 12 professional learning events. So just an update on your calendar. And then in your packet, you have a flyer related to Torchlight Parade and carol singing that's going to occur on Sunday, December 1st. So that's in your packet for you. And then really for my EPS update, I'll just give you the general update. I only have one group that I'm still yet to meet with in terms of a meet and greet related to staff. We are now going on our third chance to try to do a meet and greet with Enfield High School staff. Whether it was me being ill or we were supposed to do it last Wednesday. Needless to say, we were otherwise dealing with some other things. Very common messages across the schools, so we'll be using that information, as well as really a next step for us will be the creation of a questionnaire that we're going to be sending out to garner some additional feedback from all the staff, but I'll also be creating one that I'll push out to all the parents as well. Continue to meet with the kids, had lunch up at the high school. I should say we sat at lunch. I can't think only one or two kids actually ate, but we were there for lunch. And as well as the Black and Brown Student Union. And I have some additional meetings set up with the GSA and things of that nature. So I'm getting around still to all the student groups. Secondly, related to last Wednesday, the events of the 20th at the high school, I do want to publicly thank the Enfield Police Department. They were phenomenal that day in terms of everything that they did. It was excellent work by them. We did a debrief earlier today with the police department and all those that were involved with that matter. So I do want to thank them. I want to thank the staff we had at the high school. They did a great job in terms of really all of their coordination in the following of the procedures that we put into place as part of the all-hazard safety plan. Smith Bus, I mean, you call them and at a moment's notice, they had drivers in motion. Very timely in terms of their response, so big thanks to them. And lastly, the kids. I mean, the kids were great. They knew it wasn't a drill. They were stressed, they were anxious, they were worried, but yet they were incredibly cooperative in terms of what we were asking them to do. So it's really a testament to the kids for doing what we needed them to do in that moment. And lastly, a final plug for the specific student who did, see something and say something. And I mean, there's 1,500 kids plus the staff in Enfield High. It is very important that if anybody is concerned, if anybody ever sees anything, just a reminder to please tell somebody so that we can act accordingly and swiftly and quickly. So a big shout out to that one student individual. And then lastly for me, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for the very warm welcome into Enfield. I know it's only been 2 months, but I do incredibly enjoy what I'm doing, and it's a lot has to do with you folks and your warm welcome. I'm thankful for the Board of Education, obviously, for the opportunity that you provide me to be able to lead the district and sort of to take the next steps moving forward. And lastly, for everyone, please know that I wish everyone just a joyful, restful, and safe Thanksgiving. I hope everybody has some relaxation, and fingers crossed the weather is not too cold. That's it for my update.
Thank you, Ms. Macchio. All right, we're going to do audiences next. Okay. All right, so you can come up, it's 4 minutes. Maureen Griffin. Hey.
Maureen Griffin, Abbey Road, Mom. Really happy to hear that you guys are looking to find out more what the students want to be talked about. You showed that you're willing to do it, and I encourage you to continue to do so. I think everybody should really, hopefully they heard in the grant presentation, one of them is to help our homeless students. It exists, it's real. It's not somebody just saying that to, garner funds for something. There's kids in our district that have no place to lay their head that is their own. That's not okay. And they need any and all supports we can give them, and to not be denigrated for needing it. Speaking of last Wednesday, nothing like welcome into the deep end, but as a parent, I can already give you my survey response right now. I have 3 children that were in the high school when this was happening. There was 3 different responses, partially based upon personality, more so based upon proximity to what was happening. One child was in the room where the student was removed from in aggressive, needingly aggressive way, necessarily aggressive. But seeing what had to happen and hearing what continued to happen out in the hall, it was done in a very professional way, but that's not something that a kid is going to instantly come right back from. And the only reason I know that that child saw it was because that child told me, not because there was any communication to the parents of the children that were close proximity. And I think that was a large oversight on the part of admin. I think because the kids were all asked their names, their date of birth, everything, they knew exactly who was in that room. I think that the parents of those children should have gotten a heads up. Not instantaneously, obviously there's a lot going on, But you know what? It would have been nice. I mean, I knew my child was in there because of the frantic, oh my God, I don't want to die, that was coming into my phone while I'm trying to work. And how to support your child as they're going through that. The school should have notified the parents of those children that they're likely to have a stronger reaction and need some more space in order to process it. And in addition to that, it would have been good to understand beyond just the basic counselors will be available should students need them. What additional questioning are you going to have for these children because they saw, they heard? Who is going to be the one speaking to them? How are they going to ask them these questions? What can you as a parent do to support this child as they're facing these things? You know, some kids, it's just like, oh yeah, it wasn't real, it wasn't a real gun, you know, move on. Other kids respond very differently. And like I say, part personality, part proximity, it's a combination of everything. We're supposed to be working as a team. If my child is close proximity to a critical event, I don't want to be the back bench. I want to be right in the dugout, and I want to know what you're doing and how you're supporting my kid and how I can help my child further. That was a failure on admin's part to not do that, and I hope they learn. And God forbids something like this happens again, there's better communication on that front. There was great, your letter that you sent was great as a general letter. I should have heard from the actual high school admin directly. Not a phone call or anything, but you know, an email to the parents of all those people, of those children that were directly seeing and experiencing their worst nightmare and imagining that they were about to have their last moments. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Okay. Moving on to board members' comments. Does anybody want to go? Oh, Ms. Acree, go for it.
Good evening, everyone. I would also like to address the incident that happened on November 20th at our high school. I was glad to learn that the situation was taken care of immediately by our school administration in collaboration with the Enfield Police Department by implementing the lockdown procedures right away for the students and staff and identifying the student before any harm was done to anyone at the high school. I would like, as a board member, to thank all that were involved into getting our high school into the secure school status and dismissing the students in a timely and safely way to their parents. But as you know, I am an advocate for the mental health and wellness of our students and staff in our district. Incidents such as this one shows that we do need strong programs and resources and support for the students in Enfield. We don't know what issues a student may be struggling with emotionally in their home life or even in the school community. So I think it is very important that we have in our district enough counselors, social workers, and behavior technicians in place at all of the schools. Thank you for listening, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Ms. Acree. I'd like to go next. Ms. LeBlanc? Yep.
I'll go. I just have a couple things I wanted to say. So, Mr. Macchio, I really enjoy your weekly emails. And in particular, I found most interesting the meeting that you had with Mr. Lungi, Chairwoman Riley, and the State Department Alliance District, beginning of the year meeting. I appreciate these meetings, and listening to what Dr. Jenkins, or reading what Dr. Jenkins said about, that whole 1 year look back. And then if we had gotten the 10-year look back, we would have gotten about this much more money, is really shines a lot of light again on what's broken, and the fact that you're staying involved and persisting, and then you're having the finance people come on December 10th, I think is huge, not only to understand the Alliance dollars, but to also understand the ECS cost share dollars and what that formula means. I also appreciate you saying the next review of the ECS funds won't be until the 2026-2027 biennium budget. And I like how you're recognizing that they're saying the ECS cost share is too high, so we're being held harmless, but should it be designated as Alliance funds? I really think that these are important steps into understanding what it's going to be an Alliance district, and the funky way they're funding this Alliance dollars. It's not like every other district. So I really appreciate these updates. I also noticed that some of the updates are things that can be found in our policy manuals, or things you would know if you, the request by board members, things you would know if you were actively involved in the schools on a day-to-day basis, or even a weekly basis. Ms. Acree, please, thank you so much for saying what you said tonight about mental health and the supports that we need in our schools. I think that you hit the nail on the head, and your persistent work with the Mental Health Committee, along with Dr. Kalnin, really stress what we do need in the district. I, for one, was also had it down that I would like to call out the bravery of the student on the see something, say something. It's not easy, but your bravery was so important that day. Lastly, I appreciate the work that you've done on the budget. I've sat in on those finance committee meetings. I know we've talked about it in leadership meetings. We've heard that we need more supports. We're understanding the grants. I am going to be very interested to see what budget deliberations look like this year, because I've seen budgets that have been presented with 1 million pages and have been told that I think you're going to make it very hard for people to say no to fund our district. So I'll be having a front row seat, because I know that you are working very hard, and I appreciate the work you're doing with Ms. Cisneros on that. I will be here front and center, because I want to know every excuse as to why they are going to say no. It's not going to be for lack of information. It's not going to be for the lack of reasons. We need supports. It's not going to be that, this person's too expensive. We need, cheaper staff. So I appreciate going into this budget season fast and furious as you're doing. So I wanted to say that. Lastly, I would like to wish everyone a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. I hope you all get to spend time with your families, your loved ones, and that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Legg. Anybody else like to go? Dr. Kalnin?
Okay, so I just wanted to comment very briefly on the CABE convention that you attended, Mr. Macchio, and you guys too. And I was particularly interested in your notes about the keynote address by Chris Horgan. And first, with respect to his comments about the black and brown student population, Mr. Horgan advised, quote, getting the voice of those that are not typically willing to share, among others, the Black and Brown Student Union, unquote. So I guess the question, and you partially answered it, I think you are addressing this issue already, have we been sufficiently proactive in learning about the experiences of these students? And you already commented that you're meeting with the Black and Brown students. I think that's extremely encouraging. There have recently been concerns raised about inequitable treatment of Black and Brown students in our school environment. Last September, I reviewed material distributed to members of the Enfield Board of Education by a representative of an organization called Showing Up for Racial Justice. And the data presented were very troubling, and I wanted to remind our audience of some of the highlights of presentation, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but I think it bears repetition. In the school year 2022 to 2023, the arrest rate per 1,000 students in the town of Enfield was exceeded only by that of Waterbury in achieving the dubious distinction of having the highest student arrest rate in the state of Connecticut. So the question is, what's responsible for this troublesome finding? One undeniable possibility is the disproportionately high arrest rate in Enfield involving students of color. State data indicate that in school year 2019 to 2020, black students made up only 6.8% of the student population in Enfield, but accounted for 21.6% of arrests. And a similar disparity was noted with respect to Hispanic students. Of particular relevance, nationwide, school arrests more than doubled after the introduction of armed guards into schools compared to the situation prior to this intervention. So we must ask, can we expect the disparity in arrest rates to increase even further as a result of an armed police presence in Enfield schools? Apropos of the information provided by Showing Up for Justice, the remarks of Chris Hogan have given us an opportunity to ask, have we given Enfield students of color an opportunity, have we given Enfield students of color and their families an opportunity to advise the school system of their personal experiences? If we want to truly address this issue, the effort must begin with a conversation with our minority students and their families. The second part of Mr. Horgan's, one of the other issues that Mr. Horgan brought up was the issue of career opportunities. Statewide, quote, less than 40% of students participate in relatively simple career exploration activities. I thought that was really troubling. We all know that there's a paucity of people in a number of careers that don't require a college degree, but which are in very high demand and which are potentially very lucrative. And these are highly respected occupations, including carpentry, plumbing, electricians, construction, HVAC. So can we come up with a plan for proactively introducing these opportunities to those students who do not plan on attending college? Is there something more than we can do other than putting up a tent or sitting behind a desk? Is there some way that we can proactively reach out to these students and encourage them to explore these opportunities? Career Day is great, but this can't be a one-and-done initiative. We have to find a way of repeatedly meeting students where they are to talk with them about career opportunities. And before I forget, Jean, thank you so much. That was an incredible statement, and I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Kalnin. Who would like to go next? Ms. Piggott?
Right. So first I want to comment on our student reps. I love the idea of soliciting feedback from your classmates and encouraging their feedback in your comments. I think that's a great way to encourage additional student voice and bring that perspective here. So thank you for attending the conference and for being creative and innovative and really using your seat in powerful ways. So thank you. It is the season of gratitude, so I am incredibly thankful to our staff, our families, our community partners, and our students. I, too, want to address the lockdown at Enfield High School. I think it's important that we acknowledge the fear, the trauma, and the impact on students, families, and staff. It's very real. Unfortunately, I understand the depth of the impact of school shootings. I'm thankful to the student who heard something and said something, for the student and the staff for their cooperation, Smith Bus, and for our Enfield Police Department's response. Jean, I'm going to second your comments. This event demonstrates the need for proactive and supportive staff, and that's part of a safety and security plan. So thank you. I want to thank our 4th grade Parkman team. I had the privilege of attending an amazing field trip last Friday to the Connecticut Culture and History Museum in Hartford, where students learned about our 3 branches of government. It was incredibly interactive. I've never been there, so I encourage us all, families, community members, to check out this local treasure in Hartford next to Elizabeth Park. It is free the first weekend of every month, so no reason not to go. And I also want to thank staff and families and our PTOs for conferences. So those were long nights, and I know there was donations of meals and things like that. And I really appreciate all those that attend and make those opportunities for families and staff to connect.
Thank you. Olivia, did you have your hand up?
I just wanted to mention something regarding the Wednesday lockdown from a student's perspective. So I have heard, obviously there's been lots of support, for admin, police, but I think something that isn't mentioned enough is the student support. I have heard many stories of students supporting each other, making each other feel comfortable, supported, feel better in a very nerve-wracking situation that, can, like you said, affect people very deeply. So I just wanted to give a shout out to any of the students that were there for one another. It's really a great thing what people were doing for each other, and I'm very proud of the students at Enfield High.
Thank you, Olivia. Would like to go ahead, Mr. Ryder.
Thank you, Olivia. Before you said that, I was actually going to thank you and Izzy and Lauren and the students that had to live through that on Wednesday. And I want to thank our EPD and Smith Busing and all of our staff that could have gotten out of hand. That was a very distracting day at work. To know that as the only parent of a high schooler up here, I'm just speaking for myself, but it wasn't just in our town. It was in, my children's school. And I'm just grateful that if it had to happen, it happened the way that it did and that everybody was safe. But yeah, most importantly, I wanted to thank the students, some of whom I know spent an hour locked in a bathroom because when the alarms went off, that's where they happened to be. So thanks for hanging in there, kiddo. Just a couple of overall topics. We mentioned senior night at the football EHS. I wanted to thank personally our senior players who will be graduating in June, but I also wanted to thank our senior team managers. So we made it a point, as our great athletic department does every year, to also thank our team managers as well as our senior players. Everybody got called out onto the field. All of our seniors did, I should say, and got their picture taken in front of the scoreboard. We had changed all the numbers on the scoreboard to say 2025. So that was a very nice thing that we were able to do for our kids and our students and our student athletes. This occurs before we next meet again, so I wanted to make sure I mention Jingle Jam. Once again, that is a Safe Grad auction that takes place on Saturday, December 7th at the American Legion. You can get your tickets through enfieldpto.com/safegrad. Of course, that all goes to benefit our Safe Grad event, which will happen after graduation. And then 2 dates, just to make sure everybody has on their calendar. On Friday, December 13th, across Enfield Public Schools, we'll be doing PJ Day for CCMC. And then the next day, on Saturday, December 14th, Wreaths Across America. No word yet if the caravan will be passing through Enfield, but whether it does or does not this year, and they have been doing that for many years here. There still is a townwide event on Saturday, December 14th at noon. And that takes place at the same time across America. And that'll be our little piece of it here in Enfield. So that's it for this week. And thank you to everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. And if you're traveling out of town, please be safe.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Izzy?
I know you talked a little bit about trade school opportunities for students. I wanted to point out that for our school, we did have classes for like EMT and mechanics and stuff like that where they were bused to as Nuntuck. And because of that, budget cuts, sadly, it was cut. But I was just talking with Mr. Macchio and Student Advisory Board. Lots of students want that back again for students that want to take that path. But because we don't have the Career Center, it's been a little bit difficult. But those students really do want that back. So I wanted to talk about that. And I also wanted to talk about the Black and Brown Student Union. I know Mr. Macchio came to go see us, and I wanted to share kind of what we talked about a little bit. For a lot of our meeting, we talked with the students in the union, and a lot of us have grown up in Enfield like our entire lives. So I feel like what we talked about was mostly, it wasn't an EHS specific issue, it's Enfield in general. A lot of the experiences of certain things come from not just inside the school, but a cultural issue that we have to focus on. And also wanted to plug in the group. If anyone knows someone that's interested, we are looking for more members, and we're meeting this upcoming Monday. So, yeah.
Thank you, Izzy. Anybody else want to go? Okay, so I'm going to go. First, I want to say that I am sorry to the students, all of our students, that you have to grow up in a world that is just crazy and you have to deal with all this stuff. So, from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry you have to deal with that. I'll be all right. Okay. Anyways. Okay. Anyways, I got a call today from a news reporter questioning me about last week and the guards in our schools. I declined to discuss it over the phone with them because the media likes to cherry pick their own sensationalized stories. So to prevent that from happening, I'm going to give my comment here for everybody to hear. I'm personally glad that the guards are in our buildings. This shouldn't be a shock since I voted for them. The response time was immediate, and the process seamlessly worked with the EPD, the town, and the schools. Everybody came home safe last Wednesday, and for that, I am very grateful. I know there will always be varying opinions and viewpoints on the guards, but for me at least, the safety and security of our kids and the staff is always of utmost importance. If I get the benefit of being able to go to my job where I have to badge in and walk past security guards, then you guys should have that benefit too, our teachers and our kids. But again, I'm sorry you guys have to grow up in a world that this is something you actually have to worry about. It's definitely not fair. So that's all I'm going to say on that one. Last week, we had a good meeting with a couple of representatives from the state, Dr. Melissa Jenkins, who's the Chief Turnaround Officer, and Amanda Baxa, who's the Associate Education Consultant for Enfield. We're supposed to meet with them 3 times a year, one at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. I'm not sure if they came before or not, but I was glad that they did come. We talked to them, well, Mr. Macchio and Mr. Longy did most of the talking. I just interjected at points, but we definitely went up to bat for Enfield. Like, it was like they didn't even know we had the Eagle Academy, and they didn't know, you know, we had all this great stuff that we were already doing, keeping our kids here and doing all the things that all the other Alliance districts are doing, but we're doing it with not the funding. You know, and then we talked to them about what we want to do for school modernization, and we definitely put in multiple plugs for, hey, if you want to send, you know, some extra reimbursement our way, that would be awesome. You know, but they seemed to be, now it's the state, so I'm not gonna, you know, expect anything will happen, but they were furiously writing down all the awesome things that Enfield does, because we do a lot of things, and we do them well.
Can I ask you a question? So how do we build that connection? Right? Because, I mean, should it be through our state legislators, our state senator? I mean, how do you build and keep that connection?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know I saw one of the state reps in here earlier, but like, it's definitely very important that they at least can talk to these people for us while we're not there. And if they want to get on the education committee, that would be even better, you know? As the more cheerleaders we can have in the state advocating for Enfield, the better we're going to do.
Right, because I guess I feel like we've had so many missed opportunities on behalf of Enfield and what people should be working for in that role as our state representatives for our town. So.
Yes, and I mean, Mr. Macchio even was like, hey, if the governor wants to come and wants to be shown around to see like what they do at Eagle Academy, and you know, our regional, I'm gonna call it regional, you know, adult alternative education program and all those opportunities that we have here that people come to us for because we do it well. You know, that's a good thing to advocate for. And they were frantically writing it down, so I'm hoping that they do something.
Thank you.
Plus, they also advised us, and I don't even know if we were aware or before or what, but they said that there are other opportunities that they can give us. They might not be able to give us actual dollars, but like PD opportunities and other supports that the state can give us. So we just kind of have to ask the representatives to hook us up.
Right. So again, we would need the reps to be actively involved in doing that for us as well.
Yeah.
So
Because I think definitely with the state, you just have to consistently be on them and just don't let your foot off the gas, which is what Mr. Macchio is doing.
right.
Yes.
No. So thank you. Again, I'll thank you again for that meeting and offering the information that they didn't know, because we do have quite a few gems here in Enfield. And
they are going to come back with more information on funding. I think they had some other things to check into for us. So.
Perfect.
Yeah.
First, I just want to thank you as a board chair for attending those meetings. I don't think it's typical that board members like participate in those conversations and with that understanding. And I know that you're attending with like the ear to understand and support Enfield. So I just want to thank you for your leadership and commitment to supporting our district and with that very challenging experience that we had. The other point that I will clarify, because I think it's important, there's like kind of two issues at hand. One is our SDE Alliance District contacts, which is Ms. Baxa and Dr. Jenkins, which is a contact for the district that I think we have as like a resource and support, and the importance of our state reps and our newly elected state reps of advocating for state funding and resources and support for us to be able to do our programming. So thank you, Charlotte, and I really appreciate your leadership on that.
Thank you. Mr. Giannitis, would you like to go?
Yep. I don't want to go, but I'm going to. Please indulge me tonight for probably 8 to 10 minutes because I have something very personal I want to say. And I want to let you know that I speak with no malice, nor will I use anybody's name who is presently in public office. About a decade and a half ago, I was elected to the Board of Ed for the first time. And in my opinion, I believe it was one of the finest boards since I moved into Enfield in 1976. The last board that I had a lot of respect for was one that was run by Roxy Burke and Pat Stroine and company. I even had the privilege to negotiate a teacher's contract against those guys. I also had the privilege of working with two very excellent superintendents, Dr. Lou Mager and Dr. John Gallagher, both who had very different leadership styles, but two men who I had the utmost respect for. I was elected for 3 consecutive terms, the last 2 being the beginning of the decline, in my opinion, of successful Board of Educations. I did not seek a 4th term, feeling I had proudly done my public service to the town of Enfield and walked away from local politics. I also left the Republican Party, became an independent for a few years, and then went back to the Republican Party. I'm not quite sure why. I like to think of myself as a fiscal conservative and social libertarian. I loved teaching for 38 years. I loved working with kids and watching their educational light bulbs coming on. I always thought the subject matter was important, but learning to learn was just as important. I worked with many excellent teachers. We taught with a passion. We had fun in our classrooms and out of our classrooms. For a number of years, I took 100 kids each year up to the mountains of New Hampshire for a week-long program that was known as Nature's Classroom. Then I started taking kids overseas on international trips throughout Europe, as far east as the Soviet Union, and we went westward to New Zealand and Australia. Locally, we went on field trips from the Big E to Boston to New York and many, many places in between that triangle. Teaching is an admirable profession. Good to excellent teaching is an art. That art is developed by working with other teachers, by observing other teachers, by talking with other teachers, and bouncing ideas off of one another. The art of teaching is not learned or developed by federal and state elected officials, passing laws and instituting educational mandates that they have no knowledge of the consequences they have created. Local school districts, in my opinion, should have the biggest input on how their own schools should be run and what each district can afford. I could go on and on, but I'm digressing from what I really want to say. Okay. So last election, I got elected for a fourth time. The only reason I ran was because I was extremely disappointed in the previous board. I ran because I was upset at that board. Stupid reason to run, I know. But Pizzagate, the mask issue and how it was handled, the flexible time limits for audience participation, the contracts that were settled with the ETA and administrative contracts, the constant beating down of one Republican board member who dared to challenge some of the board actions, the out-of-control spending and hiring that put this town in serious financial crisis. Enough was enough. Now here I sit. Now I will say that everyone who sits on this board truly, and I mean everybody, truly believes that they are doing what they believe is best for the educational needs of our community. We do have our opinions as to how those needs should be met and as to what those needs are. But no one up here, nobody, should have to sit here and have the public shots taken at them on both sides of the aisle. And yet, we still try to work to make the education in Enfield the best it can be in our opinions and what our beliefs are. That said, there are a few things that I think the public, in my opinion, should be aware of. On the night of the election, my wife and I were walking up the steps at the Knights of Columbus, where the Republicans were gathering for the election results. The mayor and I saw each other, shook hands, and exchanged pleasantries. Then out of the clear blue, a member of the Democratic Party started yelling and screaming in my face, saying that we, the new majority, better not try to get rid of the superintendent of schools, where there would be consequences. This person already knew that that superintendent had started the process of getting a job in Old Saybrook. Then another Democratic board member begins yelling and screaming at my wife, who was about 3 steps behind me, and that person was making a movement toward her. I had just had hip replacement surgery and was still using a crutch to get around, and I had to move over and step in front of him as he appeared to be advancing towards my wife. There were witnesses farther up the stairs who saw everything that went on. Then there was the night the new board was sworn in. The 2 Democrats made scathing remarks about me and what kind of teacher I was. These remarks were made, I believe, based on one administrator's write-ups to whom I had a long-standing confrontational relationship with. My written rebuttals, I don't think, were ever seen. Other teachers were also subject to this administrator's negative write-ups of incidences. Scathing remarks were taken so out of context and false perceptions made that they weren't even worth responding to in public that night. I am very proud of my teaching career. I taught my subject matter very well. I worked with and had excellent relationships with most of my students. Did I make some mistakes and not reach every child? Yes. All teachers go through that and experience that. You can't please everyone all the time. Now, finally, when the Republicans gained control of the Board of Education last November, I thought there would be a multitude of changes made. But our very first caucus, I came up with about 19 or 20 suggestions that I thought we should work on. And then at our caucus on November 11th of this past month, again, I came in with about 17 or 18 items that I thought we should work on changing or implementing. Over the past year, the only thing I've accomplished on this board is getting 4 minutes for speakers to speak during audience participation. Mr. Cobra has sat there at the end, and he has made some very credible changes in how we handle and keep track of financial going-ons on the board. As the party in control at the moment, Chairman Riley has done an outstanding job in getting us through the financial crisis that this present board inherited, with thanks to the Town Council for clearing the board's debt. There are accomplishments on this board, their accomplishments on this board, I felt, came to a screeching halt. As an aside, I will never forgive this board for cutting the middle school sports and ninth grade sports programs. It is said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, hoping to get a different result. Well, I'm not ready to go insane. As I see it, this board is made up of 4 Democrats, 2 conservatives, and 3 rhinos. Thus, after tonight's meeting, I'm going to give Charlotte my resignation from this board, effective December 11th, 2024. That will be the last meeting of this year. I have chosen that date so as to give time to other Republicans to consider whether or not they might want to be interviewed for this vacated seat. It will also give this board the opportunity to see whom they would like to have as their next vice chairman. And finally, from the bottom of my heart, I really mean this, I wish for Enfield to have the best education it can afford, for the dedicated teachers, for the dedicated auxiliary staff, for the administrators, for the central office employees, for this Board of Education and the next board, and above all, for all the kids in the Enfield Public Schools. May everyone out there have a good and safe Thanksgiving with no political arguments amongst family members.
Thank you, Mr. Janitis. Mr. Cover?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Peter, for your letter. I want to take a moment to thank Mr. Janitis for his tenure as the vice chair of this board. I think his experience and his leadership were a strong asset to our team, and his focus on identifying issues and proposing solutions should serve as a model for us. I hope he continues to be an active voice and advocate for positive change. I would be remiss if I didn't say I was disappointed to lose an ally on this board. However, I respect and support his decision. His dedicated service to Enfield Public Schools and our community reflects great credit upon himself, the Enfield Board of Education, and the town of Enfield. Moving on to some general comments, I do also want to thank and recognize the Enfield Police Department and the school administration for their prompt response to the Enfield High School on Wednesday, November 20th. While this incident is, of course, under investigation and many details cannot be publicly stated, I think the situation provides a tangible justification of the benefit of the district switch to the armed security model, and that we saw a improvement to our safety and security during that incident. Circling into some other conversations that came up tonight, I did also want to take an opportunity to come back around to some of the conversations we had during this previous spring regarding budgeting and budgeting priorities. As our vice chair had mentioned in his letter, many of you recall that the district lost middle school and ninth grade sports this current year. And during the meeting before that was approved, potential money was identified to be reallocated away from items including non-instructional property, items and equipment that was subsequently clarified by our interim superintendent at the time to be used for student de-escalation or so-called blue rooms. Therefore, the amendment to reallocate that money failed. So for those that may not know, a de-escalation or a blue room is essentially a large closet space with padded walls used to contain students exhibiting extreme social and behavioral outbursts, essentially a sort of detainment or protective custody location. So while the district this year lost sports for at least over 200 students, and I must note that we further failed to save any teachers' jobs by being in opposition to that amendment, we now have completed several of these detention-style rooms for some of our youngest students, going down to our K through 2 level. Therefore, I propose a question through the chair to the superintendent on quantifying the usage of these blue rooms, specifically on a monthly or yearly basis, how many students and how many schools are being held in these rooms? What is the longest time of detainment in this room? I ask these questions for a transparent reflection on what do we value most. I believe this also ties into some of the deeper conversations we've had regarding arrests and suspensions that are conducted, specifically arrests by outside agencies such as the Enfield Police Department, while neglecting to consider that we are potentially detaining our own kids in these blue rooms. While several of us up here wanted to save sports for students, we were effectively blocked by some of those that claimed to prioritize teacher employment. In the end, we saved neither. We didn't save sports, and we didn't save any teachers. But we did save prisons for kids. What's worse, there's murmurs that in next year's budgets, we're considering improvements to these rooms. Moving on, it has also come to my attention that we do have embedded service providers and clinicians in our schools, again, going down to the K through 2 level, that are not EPS employees. So I propose another question through the chair to the super. Does the board have a MOU or an agreement with these third parties, with these third-party healthcare providers that allow them into our schools and to conduct operations in our schools? Do we know how many do we have assigned at each school and how many students they have on their caseloads? While we all recognize early intervention and social emotional support resources can be beneficial, is there a demonstrated need or benefit observed from these resources? And why can we not conduct them with EPS employees? For these third parties, what is the cost or budgetary impact to the district? If these third-party clinicians go ahead and bill patients or insurance, does the district see any revenue or reimbursement for the usage of our facilities and time offered during the school day? I did also notice on our website that we are still hiring for elementary instructional teaching assistants. This was proposed as a mitigation effort on elementary classrooms with large class sizes, and again, to alleviate the workload on some of our teachers. So through the chair to the super, if we could get a status on the implementation of that, as well as potential contingency for the school year if we're unable to fill those vacancies. I did also read a recent article in the JI about our status as an alliance district. I know we did talk about there was a meeting between the superintendent and the chair with the Connecticut State Department of Education. So as mentioned, I'm glad we're having those meetings, and it seems like we do have a disconnect. I know last spring we had sent a letter asking to be removed from the alliance district designation, but as reading this JI article, it seems that the superintendent intends to keep us in the alliance district. So I think it's important we deconflict and reconcile what are we trying to do and if we can send out the same message. I also recently heard that board and council leadership met to discuss school modernization. And I know there's a couple different options we're looking at, including new construction, renovate to new, as well as some other options. So while information's out there, I'm wondering if the board is ready to have discussions on what will be our recommended action, and if we have also considered redistricting the K through 5 schools as an alternative to some levels of this modernization. I guess through the chair to the joint facilities, while doing some of the school walkthroughs, I did hear concerns about overall cleanliness and timeliness of maintenance issues and resolutions. So I asked the question is, do we have a method of tracking repair and work orders? And then who is responsible for conducting oversight on those repairs and work orders? Everything from leaky ceilings to ensuring classrooms and hallways are swept and cleaned at the end of the day. I did want to echo that the Enfield Annual Torchlight Parade will be Sunday, December 1st at 6 p.m. There is a rain date, possible snow date. Sunday, December 8th, and this parade follows the same parade route from Enfield Street School to the town green. And I will take a moment to wish everyone a safe, happy, and healthy Thanksgiving break. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kober. Go ahead, Ms. Beckett.
I just want to clarify a couple of things because I think it's really important that there's some consistent information shared. So Phil, you and I disagree on a lot of things, but we're also able to have productive conversations, so I really do appreciate that. I do have concerns about the use of the Blue Room, but I think it's really important that, and I don't want to speak for the district, so Superintendent, feel free to correct me, but there is mandated reporting that the district has to do around the use of that type of response through restraint seclusion data, through our suspension data. So if a student is removed from a classroom for more than 40 minutes, that's considered an in-school suspension. So there's a lot of ways that that information is, I'm sure, collected and already reported. So I'm sure there's ways we can get that information. I also think that it's really important, language matters. So referring to those spaces as prisons for kids, I think they're used for our most high need students in the really most delicate. It's not what we want to see or do for kiddos, and there's careful consideration and de-escalation. And so when we think about money for sports and we think about money for staffing, we would actually decrease the use of that space if we had appropriate staff. And so I think it's important to think about priorities and then think about impact and then think about solutions. The other piece around our outside supports, we do contract with folks for speech and language services like PTOT, but we also have school-based behavioral health services through CHC, which there is formalized agreements. There is no cost to the district for those supports. They do get Medicaid reimbursement. I don't think we see any reimbursement for that. However, the services that they provide to our students is the benefit. When we don't have our own full-time social work counselors in our buildings, but yet we rely on this partnership to provide hands down more than they are being paid to do. I mean, go visit Hazardville Memorial School one day and see what that CHC social worker is doing. We're getting a bang for our buck by that support. So I think it's important to have full information, and language really matters.
Ms. LeBlanc?
Can I just add to the outside professional services that we have here is because we can't fill those positions. And last year, with the budget shortfall, the amount that we had to spend in outside services for speech and OT was a driver of that budget. And we also talked about this year keeping an eye on that cost going forward, because we have to pay so much because we are not being able to employ them through our district, which ideally, budgetarily wise, for the benefit of the student, you would just want them to be employed by us, because we are spending so much more, and these outside services obviously we have to pay them because we need them to come in and support our students. I think we should keep an eye on that money for our budget.
Exactly, and I think that's what my question relates to. If we already have social workers, PTOTs, speech and language pathologists, then why are we also contracting? So I think we're on the same page, and that is a budgetary issue versus hiring versus contracting. So
we just don't have enough. I think that's the issue.
And that's fair.
Everybody else set? Okay. Well, I was not expecting you to resign this evening, but
until December 11th.
Okay. But I appreciate the time that you spent on this board, and you'll be missed. And then, just in response to Phil's comments about the JI article, I too was taken aback by the title, because the email that was sent to the JI was not reflected in the title.
What was the title? I didn't use
something about Enfield wanting to stay in.
Yeah, I believe the title was Enfield wishes to remain an Alliance district.
Yeah. Right. So, which I have the email if you'd like to see it, that the superintendent sent to the reporter, which some of it actually got into the article, but definitely the title, we were looking at two different things. But
Well, in that case, I'm glad I didn't respond to his call.
right, which is why I did not speak with the reporter this morning. Anyways, moving on. Let's move on to some business here. All right, unfinished business. Number 10, policy revisions, second readings. So can we approved these all together in a group of one last time, right? We approved them all together at once? Do we want to do that? That's another question to pose. Are we going to do this again like that? But go ahead, Janet, you're up.
The policies on the agenda for our second reading this evening were recommended and approved by legal counsel for the town of Enfield and for the Board of Education to ensure compliance with all applicable law, including a recent federal court decision. I'd like to make a motion to approve the second reading of policy 0521, non-discrimination.
So moved.
Oh, I was just going to do all three, sorry. Policy 4118.11, non-discrimination, and policy 4118.112, discrimination and harassment.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Ms. LeBlanc, second by Ms. Pickett. Discussion. Mr. Cover?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just add that I made my general remarks regarding one of the specific policies during the last meeting. Therefore, I'll be voting not in favor. Thank you.
Any other discussion? No? Okay. Roll call, please, Kathy.
Mrs. Acree?
Yes.
Dr. Calnan?
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman?
Yes.
Mr. Junitas?
No.
Mr. Kober?
No.
Mrs. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickett?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Chairwoman Riley?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Number 11, new business, policy revisions, first readings. Mrs. Cushman.
In response to the district-wide budget cuts, there has been interest amongst local community members and friends of the Enfield Public Schools to engage in various fundraising efforts. As a means to protect the district and to make the most of these fundraising efforts, at the most recent regular committee meeting, policy members voted to move forward policies that provide more clearly defined guidelines. Policy 320, gifts, grants, and bequests to the district, provides direct guidance and criteria for donations to the district. I would like to make a motion to approve the first reading of policy 3280.
Motion made by Ms. Cushman. Need a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ryder. Discussion on this. Ms. Pickett.
So I appreciate us, especially with budget constraints and folks wanting to support the district, thinking about policy to guide this. I guess I have a couple wonders, questions, considerations, maybe apprehensions about passing it tonight, without maybe the committee looking more at it. One is grants is included in the language, and I think from what we just kind of thought about tonight, grants are an interesting animal on their own. And my worry is that looping them into this policy then constrains what we can apply for grants for, because like these seem to be educational in nature only, and I would argue like after school programming, family activities are educational in nature, but I think that interpretation of what is considered educational in nature could get stretched. So I have some apprehension around the grants being included in this policy. And that piece around non-academic grants provide funding for many of our non-academic resources. So like the impact that could potentially have with grants being included. So that's the only comment I have.
Mr. Janice.
Janet, what Amanda just said, is that putting a lock on all grants or just some grants? Because she is making a good point there.
It's my understanding that any type of grant before it's submitted, there needs to be approval from the superintendent. So there's not really a limit in the sense of other than what the superintendent would limit. And there are guidelines, there's administrative guidelines.
So you have to, regardless of which way we go, you still have to give approval.
Any grant that's submitted has to have approval from my office before it's submitted.
I think my concern is the policy says the superintendent shall inform the Board of Education of any gift that's been accepted by the district, and then it talks about us accepting the gift or rejecting the gift, which does put us having some control over. It doesn't formally talk about us approving or not, so I guess my apprehension of approving tonight is I want to clarify some of those pieces, because I think obviously we want internal procedures that we want our superintendent to review and approve any of the grants or how we're using funds, but I don't necessarily think that we want us as a board approving every grant that we just saw, how many of them listed.
Yeah, I'll just chime in because we did do a lot of work on this one in committee, and we went through a couple different versions. And the gift, grants, and bequests nomenclature seems kind of like the standard title, whether we were looking at template policies from CABE or a different vendor such as Shipman and Goodwin. The intent of this policy, though, the guidelines aren't set to grants. The language is there, but if you read through the actual policy page of this, it doesn't make specific reference to it. We did also, in an effort to streamline policies, we did actually cut this one in half. So the policy that the board controls is the first one, and then the administrative regulation set up by the superintendent is actually the second page. So it's kind of a formality that we're even seeing that, where we really just have jurisdiction over the policy. So this is not to handcuff or force the board any further involvement in grants. It's really, besides the name, the policy itself doesn't delineate or place any restrictions on grants, if that makes sense.
I'd be more pleased if the word grant was not used.
Dr. Callen.
This is a very quick question. Bullet 9, which is the second to the last bullet, will not imply endorsement of any business or product. So would that involve the removal or covering of labels or other identifiers? And if this can't be done, would the gift involved have to be withdrawn from consideration?
So, Dr. Callen, if I may, Ms. Cushman, I will add, so that's part of the administrative regulation, so that's technically kind of beyond our purview. The reason we kept that in there is because one version did have a more in-depth policy where it was all covered in the policy. I think the intent of that bullet specifically, and again, not to speak for CABE or Shipman where we received that from, is if company A and company B both want to make a gift to the district, but we only accept the gift from company A, we wouldn't do that if it projected that the district is now endorsing company A and not endorsing company B.
I think it's also like if we get a gift of like a curriculum or a book or something, like it's not like Enfield Public Schools is now like the federal, like is endorsing this product. Like we all use iPads, but we're not being like, you can only have iPads, folks, you can't have an Android, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think Ms. Pickett hit the nail on the head there. It's not whether it's Apple products or Android products. It happens to be that way. But with the nature of gifts, and again, notating that that's kind of the regulation part of that's a little more of the nitty gritty for the superintendent to enforce. But we thought that was just kind of important for the board to see that there is a administrative regulation that is supplemental to this policy that we're proposing.
A couple additional items, if I could add into this, for clarity's sake, if I may. I think the word grants is there because we don't know what additional grants actually exist out there in the future that a teacher may find, that a teacher may request, that a teacher may submit for, or an administrator may submit for. So those grants obviously have to go through my office and they have to be approved by me prior to doing so. And I can think of one specific instance where people attempt to get grants for, say, technology. And maybe our district is not, maybe our infrastructure is not ready to support said technology. So that's why it has to go through my office. The second part of it, I just think for a point of clarity, that final paragraph that you're referencing regarding the Board of Education, I think that's a simple change, and I think many times I act on behalf of the Board of Education. And I think really that paragraph is speaking about if I, as the superintendent, determine that the gift fails to meet the criteria, then I'm going to let you know. And that any gift rejected by me, the superintendent, on your behalf. So I think we could add some clarifying statements there. That would make you, I believe, would make you more comfortable.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay, sensing.
Can I make a motion to table it and make the revisions in subcommittee?
I would just recommend either we amend it now, because I know that there is a goal to move this forward before the next budget cycle, and there may be potential gifts, grants, and bequests that we should act upon, so it would be nicer to have this policy approved by that time. So if someone had an amendment and they wanted to propose it, I think that'd be more appropriate than returning it back to committee.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion to amend the last paragraph to, if the superintendent determines that a gift fails to meet the criteria established in the administrative regulations, the superintendent shall inform the Board of Education any gift rejected by the Board of Education rejected by the superintendent on behalf of the Board of Education shall be returned to the donor on the donor's estate, with a statement indicating the reason for rejection of such gift. So just adding by the superintendent on behalf of the Board of Ed.
I'll second that amendment.
Okay, the amended motion made by Ms. Pickett, second by Mr. Kober. Is there any discussion on the amended motion? No discussion. Okay, sensing none. We're going to vote on the first amended version of the policy 3280.
The first reading
First
of the
reading.
amended
That's what I
version.
meant, sorry.
Mrs. Acree?
Yes.
Dr. Kalman?
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman?
Yes.
Mr. Janitis?
I'm still not sure which, are we voting on the original one or
No,
the
the
amendment?
amended
The
one.
amended.
The amendment.
Yep.
First reading of the amendment.
Yes.
Mr. Kober,
Yes.
Mrs. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mrs. Pickett,
Yes.
Mr. Ryder.
Yes.
Chairwoman Riley.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Ms. Cushman?
Policy 3281.2 specifically addresses fundraising campaigns, more commonly called crowdfunding. Like 3280, this policy recognizes the value of fundraising and provides structure and guidelines for both members of our community and staff alike. I'd like to make a motion to approve the first reading of Policy 3281.2, fundraising campaigns, crowdfunding.
Motion by Ms. Cushman,
Second.
second by Mr. Kober. Any discussion on this one? Mr. Janitis?
This has nothing to do with kids going house to house. Okay.
Mr. Kober?
So I'll just add, this is another one we kind of did a lot of legwork in committee, and it's, while not directly, it is cross-referenced with 3280, and we'd like to get them passed at the same time. So this is predominantly covering online crowdfunding, but it is cover all crowdfunding. And again, this does set parameters, guidelines to how that crowdfunding should work, factors, deliberating approval, as well as general workflow and processes. So again, the committee endorses this policy.
Okay. Ms. Pickett?
Sorry, I have questions again. So again, here there's language in, like in the second paragraph around agreed to by the board. Does that mean we are making any determination? So it says money or items raised by fundraising campaign will be the property of the district only upon acceptance by the board and will be used in accordance with the terms for which they were given as agreed to by the board.
Yes. So in this instance, the board, Mr. Macchio is our representative for the board in this statement.
Okay. And then in the next paragraph, this requests for grants and donations need to first be made with the building principal and with the superintendent as appropriate. It sounds like all requests are going through you, so I'm wondering if like a removing of as appropriate, because I don't know.
We have a benchmark threshold of up to $500 where you could go straight to an admin. A local organization may be raising funds and they want it to go to their neighborhood school. And if it's up to that amount, the building administrator can approve it. They will, of course, loop in the superintendent. Anything more than that would go through his office.
Perfect. And the reason I'm asking these questions is not because I'm not supportive of the policy. I just think oftentimes we're stuck in this limbo sometimes of like policy is written and then how we interpret it can vary. And then what we expect administration to do on behalf of the policy is vague. So I appreciate your patience and understanding. And then my wonder is how it was in 3280, where there was like the administration procedures. I feel like some of those pieces, it might be helpful to know that because I wouldn't know. The paragraph under that, it talks about superintendent referring this request to the board for final acceptance or rejection. That is when, sorry, I'm just making sure that when the appropriateness of the request is in doubt or if the grant donation obliges the district to engage in specific actions. So if you don't agree with potentially the fundraising purpose, or it obligates us to continue a cost. So for example, folks want to fund middle school sports, it funds it maybe for 1 year, but it won't fund it for next year. Those requests would then come to the board for us to accept or reject. I just want to make sure I understand what this is saying here.
So, Ms. Pickett, speaking from committee, that was the legislative intent in this paragraph, that it's as we kind of mentioned before, the superintendent is our sole representative, but if there is something where he is undecided, it's a gray area between the policy and the regulations. Or again, like you said, it would require us to do something that we wouldn't normally do. As you said, it would almost create this unfunded thing where it might fund it for a year, but it's not going to fund it long term. The superintendent may refer it to the full board for action rather than take action on his own in those limited cases.
And then I guess, and I know we have an expert sitting up here as our PTO role, I'm just wondering if there's any implications of this policy on our current kind of fundraising happenings. I know we have lots of PTO fundraisers, our clubs, our sports are doing things in Raffia Plaza and car washes. And just wondering if there's going to be any implications on how our current operations are with these new policies.
Nothing that would negatively affect what we already do.
Perfect. All right. That's it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, Kathy, roll call, please.
Mrs. Zachary?
Yes.
Dr. Kalnin?
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman?
Yes.
Mr. Janitis?
Yes.
Mr. Kober?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickett?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Chairwoman Riley?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Number 12, board committee reports. Curriculum.
The last meeting, which was scheduled on November 21st, was canceled. So the next meeting for curriculum is scheduled on December 19th. November's agenda items will be addressed at the December meeting.
Thank you. Finance and Budget Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So there's no Finance Committee update since our last board meeting, as the subcommittee did not meet. The next meeting of our subcommittee will be Tuesday, December 10th at 5:30 p.m. here in Town Hall.
All right. Policy Committee.
At our last regular scheduled policy meeting, in addition to our policy discussions, Superintendent Macchio introduced the committee to the strengths and advantages of the Shipman Policy Service. Mr. Longy also offered valuable insights from his experience as the policy liaison for the past several years. Given that the Shipman Policy Service is more in line with the goals of the board, our school district will be transitioning from the CABE Policy Service to Shipman. The next meeting for the Policy Committee is Tuesday, December 17th at 5:30.
Thank you. All right, and Leadership Committee, we met and discussed the budget, current and future needs. We discussed modernization.
ECS cost sharing.
Yep, ECS cost sharing. We discussed the agenda and guests and the CABE to Shipman things. And our next meeting is next Wednesday. Okay, liaison reports. I'm having a hard time tonight. Liaison reports, Joint Facilities Committee. So the last meeting, they said that the EPD, the police department roof was done and there was some electrical being completed for heating mats to stop the ice dams, and there, and 11/22, the gutters were supposed to be done. The library is going to be done in about a month. And Alcorn and Parkman, there was some issues with the state paperwork. They really needed us to resubmit a notarized copy that we approved the referendum, because they apparently didn't, I don't know. But anyways, it's the state, so it's you have to tell them 40 times. So, but anyways, they're working on the Alcorn and the Parkman roof paperwork, and Mr. Macchio has his Connecticut state, I don't know what they call it anymore, but basically he can sign off on all of these school projects now with the school construction grants. So that's all set. Core CT, he's good to go. So we're all set with that. Okay, so JFK Building Committee, Scott just stepped out, so. Joint Security, anybody want to give that up?
Next meeting, I believe, is Friday, December 13th at 9:30.
Okay. Enfield Mental Health Committee.
The next meeting is scheduled.
Go on the back committee.
Yeah.
I'm on that, so you're going to have to get somebody else to
Yes, sir.
sit on it. Okay.
Thank you. All right. Go ahead, Ms. Acree. Sorry about that.
The next meeting for Mental Health and Wellness is scheduled for December 11th at 2 p.m. We have invited Amy Morales to speak on the support group titled Circle of Security, which is currently at Stowe, and we would like to see this program expanded to the kindergarten and grade 1 students.
Thank you. Enfield Culture and Arts.
The next meeting is December 3rd here in the Skiddaker Room at 6:30. The Enfield Community Chorus will be hosting their holiday concert December 14th at 6 p.m. and December 15th at 3 p.m. at the Enfield Annex.
All right, any school reports or updates or other liaisons? Go ahead, Mr. Cover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll kick off with a shout out to Friends and Family of Henry Barnard. I'll begin with continuing to monitor Parent Square for your latest and greatest updates. Students and staff will have the opportunity to participate in a 12-day Spirit Week prior to winter vacation, so check Parent Square for the details on that. Henry Barnard just released the dates for their 3-grade family science nights through the Connecticut Science Center. Kindergarten will be February 11th, first grade will be on March 19th, second grade will be on April 22nd. Connecticut Science Center will set up several hands-on experiment stations for our students and their families to experience. The Barnard Crandall PTO will also be holding a fundraiser at Hot Table on Tuesday, December 3rd from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. If you're interested in participating, use the promo code GIVE35. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Mr. Ryder?
Yes, a couple of quick updates from Eli Whitney. The Wolf Walk is tomorrow. Families are welcome to come and cheer on their students and staff as they walk around outside. Grade 3 begins at 11:30, grade 5 at 12:05, and grade 4 at 12:40. There is a donation link available on Enfield PTO. Eli Whitney's page as well. That link will stay up through Sunday, December 1st. Reminder book fair is next week, December 3rd through 6th. Classes will visit on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings, and families are invited to come shop on Thursday, December 5th in the library from 5 to 7 p.m. during Whitney Winterfest. Whitney Winterfest, again, is Thursday evening, December 5th. Picture retakes on December 11th. And lastly, the Ned Show is returning to Whitney on Tuesday, December 10th. Ned is a lovable cartoon character whose name stands for Never Give Up. Through the use of yo-yos, he encourages students to do their best and be champions at school and in life. So thank you for that. And happy Thanksgiving also from the Whitney Wolves staff to everybody in Enfield Public Schools.
Okay. Anybody else? Dr. Kalman?
Just a couple of quick updates for KITE. KITE is serving as an early childhood representative to the Enfield Together Coalition's Mental Health and Wellness Leadership Work Group. KITE's mental health chair, Chris Gameau, shared about KITE's longstanding work within the community in support of infant and children's mental health. The Heritage Fair is coming back in 2025 in partnership with Enfield Head Start. If you're interested in being on the planning committee, please email the KITE program coordinator, Hannah Song, at hsong@enfield.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kalman. Ms. Agri?
Yes, from Crandall and Principal Dupere. He says, we are looking forward to seeing our parents and community representatives tomorrow at our Parent Engagement Day. Currently, we have over 265 families who RSVP'd. Parents will be taking part in an activity with their student, and community organizations will also be present to provide resources and connect with parents. If anyone on the board did not receive their invitation and would love to attend, it's going to happen between 9:50 a.m. and 11:45. Last week, the accounting firm KPMG spent time reading books, engaging in crafts, and giving out free books to our third grade students. We are grateful for our partnerships with this community. With such a quick turnaround with a late Thanksgiving, our 12 days before winter vacation will be starting next Thursday, December 5th. It is a great way for us to have some holiday fun and to help celebrate and learn about holidays around the world.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, moving on. Approval of minutes, regular Board of Ed meeting minutes, November 12th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Pickett, second by Ms. LeBlanc. Any discussion? Sensing none. Show of hands in favor? There's 9 in favor, none against. Okay. Mr. Colbert, is there approval of accounts and payroll this evening?
There is not.
Okay.
Mr. Ryder, do we have correspondence and board communications?
Nothing that wasn't previously sent to us.
Okay, and Mr. Macchio, executive session we have this evening for matters related to school security, yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Board requested an executive session related to school security.
All right, so I will need a motion to go into executive session.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Dr. Callanan, second by Ms. LeBlanc. Show of hands in favor? 9 in favor, none against, and then we'll just close the meeting after that.
Do you want that shut off?
They'll shut it off, yep. So we are now in executive session. Thank you.